The first two are here with us at the Dubai Exhibition Center. On my immediate right, Mr. Ibrahim AlSafadi. He is the co-founder and CEO of Luminus Education, a for-good, for-profit education institution that provides demand-led practical education programs that lead to employment. He is a serial social impact entrepreneur who has founded 20 companies across 14 sectors in 5 countries, employing over 2,000 people full-time. And then a bit further, on my right, Mr. Erik Swaas, Head of International Affairs at the Swiss Federal University for Vocational Education and Training, TVET. Erik is a true ambassador for Swiss excellence in VET. And together with his team, he has positioned the university as a global expert organization through partnerships with ILO, UNESCO, UNEVOC, and partner institutions in Asia and Europe. And if all went well with the tech, then we also have the pleasure of being connected with Mumbai and Washington. Can we see the speakers, or shall I just present them already? So we'll be joined from Mumbai by Mr. Raj Gilda. He's the co-founder of Lend a Hand India, an NGO focused on providing vocational education in secondary schools in India. Raj is a banker turned social entrepreneur, and he has worked across Asia, Europe, and North America with Citibank and Deloitte Consulting. He was also the human glue who brought this panel together, so we definitely thank Raj for doing so. And to complete, we are joined by Ms. Doris King. Doris is an Associate Director of Programs at Co-Impact, a philanthropic collaborative that advances inclusive systems change and gender justice through grant making and influencing philanthropy. She previously worked at the World Bank and OECD Global Forum and co-founded the Refugee Empowerment Social Enterprise supporting predominantly female artisans to build new livelihoods. Stay tuned, because you're guaranteed to learn from them and from their discussion on delivering TVET at scale. Engaging in this discussion is both timely and important. Worldwide, 267 million young people are not in employment, education, or training, and many more work in substandard conditions. COVID-19 has accelerated major labor market transformations that were already on the horizon beforehand, such as the move to gig economies, green economies, digital economies. It has also exacerbated inequalities, with young people and women particularly hard hit by the economic fallout of the pandemic. The challenge of creating jobs and livelihood opportunities is immense. Addressing it without quality, responsive and inclusive TVET in place and reaching will exacerbate skills mismatches, yield limited effects, and further disadvantage the most vulnerable. Fortunately, governments recognize the importance of performant TVET systems. Only this month, a survey was published by the Center for Global Development that asked over 900 senior officials from more than 35 low and middle income countries which of the 10 outcome targets of SDG 4 were the most important for their country. They put both TVET and employment skills in the top 3. At the same time, TVET supporters know that delivering TVET at scale is not an easy feat. To name just 2 reasons for that: for one, TVET systems are tasked to address incredibly diverse learning needs. The breadth of skills to be developed to stay in tune with ever-changing labor markets is immense, and it can be breathtaking for the best of us. If scaling effective literacy and numeracy interventions is hard, try scaling interventions that should develop technical, digital, and soft skills all at once, because that is what young people now need to enjoy economic opportunities. Second, there is the fact that TVET, by its very nature, relies on collaboration between governments, private sector as employer and as provider of TVET, and training institutions. Too often the ball is dropped in the middle because crucial linkages between these stakeholders are not yet established. So in short, we have big issues to discuss, and the speakers will do so in 3 rounds. First, they will each get approximately 2 minutes to present, to give a little bit more background on the organizations that they are representing, so that it's clear from which perspective that they are speaking. Then we will dig deeper into change-making change-making features of TVET that actually warrant being scaled. And in the 3rd round, the panelists will then discuss the ins and outs of scaling these practices. After that, I hope we still have some time left to get questions from the audience. It's a 45-minute session only, so speakers, we hope we can keep it crisp and clear, and bear with me in case I need to interrupt or if we are interrupted for timekeeping purposes. Ibrahim, the floor is yours to give some more background on Luminus education.
Thank you so much. Luminus education is a practical education built in demand-driven. You can hear me?
I'm not sure.
Hello? Yes. Luminous education is a very unique global model. It's for good, for profit. It's built in the demand of the private sector need and keeping in our consideration the learners, the youth themselves, what they want. And this is our journey for the last 22 years. We have built a demand-driven program across 10 sectors, and we have educated more than 122,000 learners. And we have guaranteed for more than 80% of them job after 3 months of graduation. The model is very unique because the private sector, the engagement with the private sector in a global level, in a regional level, in the country level, it's in the beginning of starting the project. So we have the private sector engaged across all the model from designing to delivery to employment, and sometimes we have the curriculum of the private sectors embedded with the international education partner. We partnership because we don't develop curriculum, because we know that if we develop curriculum which will not be relevant after 2 to 3 months, so we partner with international educational providers, with employers, and we design the whole concept. The school so far we've been able to, in our journey in the last 5 years, to provide 24,000 scholarships with securing job, and that's all with the supporting of 33 international donors and high individual philanthropy from Arab world, like His Excellency Abdulaziz Al Ghureir and Abdullah Al Ghureir Foundation. They have donated us $6 million in the last 2 years. And all of that because we are delivering outcome employment. So if we find the right youth to the right program, into the right job, and we simulate the whole workplace. And we have built since 2016, virtual college can deliver end-to-end solution from students acquisition to finding the right youth to delivery of the program into employment. And during the pandemic, we've been performing one of the best education school in the Arab world and Africa, according to the third-party evaluation from Canada. With all of that, in the pandemic, we've been able to hire students, train them in a high-tech six-month boot camp, and get them job in Dubai, in Saudi Arabia, and in the US and Europe. Our model is all built in the outcome. Our focus is outcome of employment, and we have developed multi-top partnership with international education provider, international partners, and international donor, and we have made our education, high quality of vocational and technical education, affordable for every learner he came to the college. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. And this kind of seamless experience from entry, studies, and then transitioning to the world of work sounds pretty revolutionary. And I was wondering whether the Swiss model for TVET is equally revolutionary, Eric.
Thank you. I would say above all, it's a high-performing and well-functioning system in Switzerland with a long tradition. So, one of the reasons why Switzerland is one of the most innovative countries, it's competitive and also with a low unemployment rate of about 2.7%. So one reason can be found also in the system of vocational education and training. Actually, 2/3 of the young people, they are following the path of vocational education and training and are choosing one of the 240 VET programs that last about 3 or 4 years. But why is it so attractive to following the path of VET? So let me summarize very briefly 4 points. I would say it is the permeability. In Switzerland, the students, the graduates, they can have access to the labor market, but they can also continue always further education on a tertiary level, VET or going to university. So it is important that VET is fully embedded in the whole education system. Secondly, it was already mentioned, and it's nothing new, it's the public-private partnership. It is very important, and in Switzerland it's based on a dual system. So the companies, they are not only involved, but they have the lead in defining the curricula, the training content of the programs, and they deliver also the training for the youth, for the apprentices. So the students spend 1 day per week at the vocational school, but 4 days per week in a company, and they learn, and at the same time they do work also. And they get also a small salary for this. The third point is it's not only about blue-collar jobs, it's about blue-collar and white-collar. So, for example, in Switzerland, the most popular profession of the young people or apprenticeship is the commercial employee. And the fourth point I would like to mention, it's really a win-win-win situation. And you will hear it, you have heard it, you will hear it again and again. It's really about public-private partnership, so that the government, the state has benefit, the companies, but of course also the learners.
Thank you very much, Eric. Public-private partnerships, let's see if that's also what is happening in India. I do think, Raj, I hope you're online. I do think that when Eric was mentioning that in Switzerland, VET or TVET is fully embedded in the education system, that is almost reading your mind. Lend a hand, India also aims to integrate vocational education and mainstream it really at the level of secondary and higher secondary education. And could you expand a little bit more on those experiences?
Sure, thanks, Paul. In fact, listening to Eric, I almost felt that I should move to Switzerland. Wonderful. Lend a hand, India has focused on the integration, and I think there are 2-3 things which you are focused on within that as well. Like, how does vocational education does not remain for somebody else's son or daughter? Currently, the whole idea is that it is not for my son, not for my daughter, but it's for somebody else. So how do you restore that dignity of labor? A second is reaching to the masses, by integrating within the existing school system. So working with the government and implementing it in the government schools, which are already running, implanting mainstream education, is second part. And I think third, and which is probably the most important, vocational education mostly is regarded as something only for imparting training in vocation per se. But if you take the example of gardening, not only are you going to learn gardening as a skill, but you're also learning a very important life skill of taking care of somebody. Somebody is dependent on you. How do you negotiate if you're going away on holiday? To water your plant and what will you do? So, and not every time the plant will live. So how do you handle the failure? So gardening is as much about life skills too. And thirdly, if you're learning gardening when you are in the school, you will probably do much better botany, because otherwise I learned botany by just drawing leaves in my notebook, but not touching the plant itself. So these are main tenets of what Linda and he has been focused on. We set up labs in the school, recruit qualified trainers, and then introduce, provide internships to the students, and then the assessment and followed by the certification. We ourselves are working in 150 schools as a model, which acts as a model demonstration model for the government, and with the government partnership now across 24 states and union territories. We are working in 10,000 plus schools, and about 1 million plus students are covered every year. So that's about Linda.
Thank you very much. I hear some themes already coming back apart from partnerships, also the need for practical skills, and that can be then picked up through apprenticeships or internships or other forms of work-based learning. I'll give the floor to Doris now. Doris and Co-Impact, in fact, are one of the funding partners of Lend a Hand India. So we are curious to learn what kind of features and what kind of impact that philanthropy is looking for in TVET.
Hi there. Thank you, Maud, and thank you to my fellow panelists. So we recently our role at Co-Impact is supporting program partners like Lend a Hand India, who have a desire for seeing a long-term vision of long-term shifting the system, whether it be in TVET, education, economic opportunities, or we also support health and just general education space. To build off what they know, really works for the communities that we really want to serve, in a way particularly that will help to push and address transforming discriminatory structures that have kept women and girls and other excluded groups from exercising their full agency and power. And we know there's so much already to do within the components of complex intervention like TVET, that what really works, what are the things that we really need to focus on. So we see that our value at Co-Impact is also trying to intentionally build that space and supportive framework for social change organizations and leaders to really engage in that bigger picture piece as well, of what it really takes to leverage the broader system, to make it function in a way that it's not already functioning, right? To really serve our youth, and to build yourself into the type of organization as well to support the systemic type of work. And what Ibrahim said earlier really resonated. Focusing on outcomes is what we care about as well, on this people level, systems level, and very importantly for the organizations themselves as well. So let me hand it back to you there.
Thank you very much. And I also wanted to pick back up on one of the things that you mentioned, the importance of gender equality in the solutions that you promote. And it brings us also to the next question. When we're looking at the kind of game-changing practices in TVET that really deserve to be scaled, what are they? And then we'll define deserving as being effective in terms of ensuring that all learners, all young people have the skill sets that they need to successfully transition from training to dignifying and fulfilling work. And with emphasis also on all learners. So I will be interested to hear also your thoughts on what is effective, but also what works to make TVET more inclusive. Raj, I will give the floor back to you for that.
Thank you, Mark. I think a couple of features which you've seen have been working in the programs that we implemented. One is certainly internship as part of the curriculum, and especially I think internship focus as part of the curriculum with small and micro enterprises has been a feature of the program. We have seen tremendous success with the numbers that we have so far. That almost 3 out of 4 of our interns are being asked by our employers to come back to work for them. More than 80% of the students or our participants feel that they've got the required skills to sort of join the workforce. And most importantly, almost 75% of our girl parents of the girl students, think that their daughter is ready to join workforce for a non-traditional skill or a job role, so even taking care of the gender bias which normally exists in the skill development sector. And I think another feature has been the micro and small enterprises. We all know large enterprises are far and few. So having access to, and India is a country of micro and small enterprises, similarly with many other developing countries as well, which can give you, the opportunities of plenty. Secondly, when you work with the MSME, you really get to do a lot, variety of jobs and focus on entrepreneurship as well, as compared to just getting a job. So I think that is one. Second practice, I would say, focusing equally on a transferable skill. Even in internship, you have seen that the trade itself is about 1/3 of the trade skill itself is about 1/3 of the job, but remaining 2/3 is about showing up in time, keeping people informed, ownership and communication and otherwise too. So focusing equally on the transferable skills is other practice. And from the inclusiveness side, I would say that working with women, motivating them from the gender equality point of view and creating enabling environment for them to pursue their career, whether it is in traditional or even in non-traditional job role, especially working with the parents, has been very, very critical from Lenda India's part. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, indeed, bringing parents on board, very important point. And I'm glad you also raised the issue of internships in micro and small to medium enterprises. They are the major employers in many countries where we work. I'd be personally curious how scaling internships in very small enterprises can work effectively. So looking forward to more discussions on that as well. Doris, I will hand the floor to you now.
Thank you. And I really see this as a real contextual question, despite, this is obviously a need that is felt so much by the youth and the industry and societies and economies around the world. Because when we think about, what's the game changer, we really see the end game as something that can truly shift the system. And that means taking the time to understand, well, why are we not there already? Like the history of the system, what are the challenges that it faces, so that it can really go from there to solutions that can help move the system into the way that will serve the youth in the way we want it to, and industry and our society as well. So, for example, Lend a Hand India, they don't only just have a promising model that works via interventions at the secondary school level system and taking a multi-skilling approach, but it's really also about the potential to see how it can fit into a government-run system and deeply understanding the incentives and the motivations that drives the people within the system as well. So taking that viewpoint and then spreading it through to how you make it work alongside the policy to make it an accredited, national scheme, so that the policymakers, the champions who at the state level want to take this on, aligned with the right incentives to take this on. I think that's really important. And then on the inclusiveness, again, very similarly, I think if there was something to say about where to start, because it's such a huge picture, again, we say start from the beginning, take a holistic intersectional gender lens to what the problem is. So before we can even start to talk about what's the intervention that would really work for the girls and for the young women that we're trying to work with and help, it's, well, what is it that's holding them back? Why are they not going to attend these TVET programs? Is it access? Is it they have care work at home? Is it because they don't see there's a future for them? So we really need to unpack what it is, and that's very contextual, to then be able to get to what are the leverages, what are the key solutions that you might think about building, either yourself or with partners who are well versed in doing this. You don't have to do everything. Let me just stop there.
Absolutely. I'm glad about 2 points that you raised, the contextualization, and we'll definitely hear about more contextualized solutions from Switzerland and Jordan soon. And the second Yeah, the second point that I would like to highlight already is the emphasis that Raj and Doris put on governments being in the lead of changing TVET systems. And on the other hand, I'm also hearing the private sector should really be in the lead. So I'm curious whether there is some kind of a co-leadership approach that might be possible somewhere, or whether we kickstart always at one end or the other. But let's first go to Eric.
Thank you, Maud. Yeah, so TVET is actually, or has experience in countries all over the world in partnering with the objective to enhance VET systems. And for me, with this experience, the most important game changer is change also the mindset. And I do not agree what has been said, that the government has to be the lead changer. For me, it's a partnership. Yeah, it's to change the mindset also of the parents, of the learners, of children, to show them perspectives that vocational education and training is not a second best option, but it's the start to a career with decent jobs and also to continue the education. The second point I would like to make about changing the mindset is, and I repeat it again, is to involve the companies. And not only to involve, but to create equal partnerships with the government, with the business, and actually that they are the owner to create the curricula. In Switzerland, actually, the companies, there are about 1/3 companies, 30% that provide apprenticeship places, so they are not obliged, but they do it because they have a benefit. They get the qualified staff, they ensure the future, then it is financially beneficial for them, and there are many other reasons. So let me just come back to the Swiss system with a citation of a Swiss educator, which is named Pestalozzi. So he said, education should develop the powers of head, heart, and hand. And just if you are interested in to know more about the VET system in Switzerland, just pass to the Swiss pavilion. There is just this week, there is a focus week on VET, and there will be also the panel discussion on Wednesday. Thank you very much.
Smooth pitch there. December 15 at the Swiss Pavilion. Definitely go there as well. And what can we learn? What are the effective practices? I'm hearing kind of a holistic approach: head, heart, hands. And somehow I feel that also applies to some of the solutions that Luminus is implementing. And what are some of those game-changing solutions that you are?
If I ask you all, where we have seen a practical education lead to employment at global scale, there is no one model globally that you can see that practical education lead to employment and innovative and at scale in the whole globe. When I dropped from university and I started to build what I have built, by learning, by doing things, I have one dream in my life: how to do that at scale. And I've been looking for all models globally. From India, when I met the Minister of Skills, and Saudi Arabia, into UK, into Brazil. And we've been learning and we've been implementing what we have implemented, and we have achieved what we have achieved, which is amazing, nothing like it. I'm so proud of my students that they made a lot of success, a lot of impact globally. But whatever we have done is not scalable. And therefore, when the pandemic started, I decided to go and develop models can create millions of jobs. and create the first education technology company in the Arab world. Putting in mind that we have partnered with the top international education providers and top international employers and donors. And we have combined all this wealth of experience with evidence and market research. And we've been working for 2 years in developing that model. That model built in how we make sure that our youth mentally and physically well, and how we uplift that, and how to learn, how to work with them to make learning and uplifting and take care of their health as a habits by pushing them. And with the practical education, and we will be focusing in 2 sectors because it's the most shortage sectors in the globe. Germany and Australia and US alone, they required more than 10 million people in AI alone before 2030, according to Boston Consulting Group. We have developed I have created very unique model that will impact millions through smart partnership and building hub and spoke and importing the best services, working with partners, with the Swiss, with the whole, in a very unique model of incentivize people to, and learner and us to deliver that program, working with donor and international employer because they need that supply of skilled labor at scale. And through that, we will avoid policy by securing within 6 months or 1 year a job that the youth, they will be so happy. And we will embed how to make lifelong learning and incentivize the whole ecosystem, including the learner, by implementing a new model that have been implemented successfully somewhere in the US and Europe, a new way of getting the credential, like micro credential and stackable. And because of the shortage of the teacher from the industry globally to come and teach, so we are developing very unique model is to deliver that through teacher assistant and with the technology that will build the physical space and the virtual space, and using the best technology in the globe to ensure affordability for all. Standards, the same standards will be delivered in Africa and East Europe and Middle East by using the technology and the right partners. And hopefully you will be hearing officially about the details beginning of next year. Thank you.
We look forward to those details as well. So I hear smart partnerships and solutions that accept global standards so that they are actually transportable across borders, and that is, I think, also very key to scaling TVET. That brings us to the next round of questions, where we'll focus more on scaling itself and what are some of the challenges that we experience when we try to scale some of the practices that were mentioned already. So I'll give the floor first to Raj. You already gave us a hint of how you want to scale the solutions that Lend a Hand has developed through government TVET systems. I've also heard some doubt about this, so please do convince us why this is a good approach for the Indian context.
So, to my friend Eric and Ibrahim, I would like to say that, it's not one versus another. I think it's a three-part. There is a role for government, there is a role for private sector, and there is a role for, obviously, the student who is at the center. Especially for a country like India. I keep joking that, India is like United States of India. in that sense. Each and every state is a different country altogether. And when you have 200,000 high schools in a country to take care of, doing it without government being a very, very big player is going to be actually impossible to do that. And of course, the partnership with the employers, and that is where the role of the civil societies like government, Lenda in India can come in, where we can bring that market-led orientation in the government sector as well. We believe policies are many, plenty actually. What fails is the execution of it, and that's why the whole model of placing Lenda in India staff members within the government with the deal that you'll give us the table and chair, fan is optional, everything else we will bring. And so how do we really remain empathetic to the government, developing that empathy for the government? Because normally we all brush off the government, which is running actually one of the most scaled up operation in the world. Thirdly, also keeping a very rooted approach. We strongly believe today these AI commodities, machine learning, day after it will be blockchain. We can't keep running behind things. It is more about learning to learn. It is more about how do I become adaptable, how do I become resilient, and being able to equip myself with the core skills which are required in order to face the changing realities in the world that we are outside in that sense. The lessons which you have learned while doing this is that while working with the government, you're not controlling almost 95% of things, and I think I'm still optimist when I say 95% as well. So be ready for the eventualities which come by not controlling majority of the time. So the patient, and that's why I think having partners like Co-Impact and who are patient funders, right, in that sense, and even involving them at the design stage itself is really, really critical. And last but not the least, I think the most challenging part, the most critical part is the organizational development. As we set about developing capacity of the government to do something, developing capacity of my own staff, my own team of organizational development of Lenda and India itself is a hugely, we all know is a challenging task, right? And that is what we are embarking upon. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Existing education systems have a huge delivery system already in place. They have 200,000 schools that we are talking about in India. So why not use them to improve and to integrate TVET? Is that also what you would propose, Ibrahim? I seem to hear you talk about a digital solution.
Yes, it's a hybrid. It's a physical and virtual, and also leveraging what is infrastructure exists, and move that to become as a wellness center, and use the best technology for the classroom delivery. And it will not be classroom, and the center will be open 24/7, because we'll have the practical space, and through that centers we are importing services outside. We're hiring the talent, and we managing within the school to import services as an outsourcing service to the globe. So it's a win-to-win solution for the employer, for the economy, for the youth, for everyone. And here I would like to mention something so important. Women, we have been working in making sure that women have all she needs to be part of this by having in every single we design in the new model is how we make sure that the women can participate in that program, from our virtual college and life coach to make sure that she can learn and she can work, and through our facilities that we provide very safe environment for the women, and also a child care in every center we are gonna build, and also coach for the woman to manage her life and kids and the stress to support her in her journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So a combination of existing infrastructures and technologies and adding new ones. Eric?
Yeah, I just want to add that, I think it is important that the IT model suits to the local and cultural context of a country. Of course, you can't copy and paste one system of a country to another. Secondly, I want to emphasize also the teachers, the quality of the training of the teachers, because it doesn't serve anything if you have the best training plan, but you don't have the teachers who can transmit the skills to the young people. So I think this is a very important point. And from the Swiss experience, so we all the teaching and training in the companies is based on a situation-based approach, so really on the work situation in the business. So also what the learners, they learn in the classroom, at the school, is coming from the world of work.
Yes, I hear the point of context and situation-based returning across the panel. And I'm also glad that you mentioned the point of TVET teachers and trainers. They are the frontline implementers, and if they cannot deliver quality and responsive TVET, then it's simply not going to happen, right? Doris, you have the honor of having the closing words on this question of scaling.
Thank you so much, Monin, and there's so much to learn from my panelists here. So I'm going to take this one with a kind of self-reflective lens on funders. You know, from what everyone's saying, this is going to be a long game for scaling, and especially if you're thinking about changing the system, you know, the way we hope to support at Co-Impact. So we really need to be around for them to provide the funding for the long term, and then also to give the space, I think, for great leaders, great organizations to play out their vision, right? So we see as critical to success finding these technically savvy, politically savvy organizations who know how to handle, the changes in the system, and really investing in their resilient growth, and so they can have strategic coherence to achieve their vision. And sometimes that might mean like I need to ask one less question to Raj or even to any others, so that they have that time to go and talk to the partner they really need to go and talk to, right? You know, I hear so much about the partnerships, and it's true across all the organizations that you need that time not to be talking to the funder necessarily, but to talk to the people who will help you move this along in the field, and to really push sometimes as well as to, are you investing in your own organizational growth in the way that you want it to grow, not just delivering us a set of deliverables because we have, you know, a 1-year funding plan and we need to be able to see what we've got at the end of 1 year. But is this setting you up in the right way, even when we do part ways, you know, in the long run, so you can succeed 10, 20 years from now when we're not around with you? So stop there.
Definitely the point on being in it for the long term. I think when we're talking about systems change and scaling, that's of course you can.
You know, we need to disrupt the system. We need to make really change because we cannot afford to leave people behind. The economy, not only that. If we remember, like today, Uber have changed the transportation system in the globe. And today the taxi in many countries, the local taxi is using Uber platform to get job. But if Uber does not disrupt the system will not change. And today, the impact of Uber and similar to Uber in the globe. And that is what we need to do in the vocational technical education that lead into outcome and impact and real jobs and innovation have to happen. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So long term, but immediate disruption is needed. We are almost rounding up, but I will nevertheless open it up for a few questions. We are allowed to go over time a little bit. I can see a hand raised here, and I hope somebody can bring you a microphone.
Hi, thank you to all the panelists. It's been very interesting to hear the different perspectives, especially that this is quite an interesting range from developed world and developing countries. My name is Shurok Zidan. I'm from Egypt. And if you work in the TVET sector, you know that TVET is integrated into the education system in Egypt. We graduate almost 2.1 million young people from the TVET sector. So I completely understand what it means by going to scale. My question here, and this is something that I would have probably liked to hear from the panelists, is first of all, TVET is very expensive. We all are very much aware, and this is why getting private partnerships is very, very essential within a TVET system. So how do you engage the private sector when you have such a large number of young people getting into the labor market, almost 2.1 million per year and growing? Maybe India would have an idea. But how do you engage the private sector? How do you get their buy-in? If the policies are in place and the government is doing everything they can in order to reform this system and create the necessary disruption, and you're getting the feedback from youth, you're understanding where the market is heading and what are the trends, but the private sector still remains, unbudged. So what are the creative solutions for that? Thank you.
Who would like to take that?
Can I take it? As you mentioned, quality of practical education is very, very expensive. Our model is built in innovative finance by investing in the talent themselves, because we are sure that we will give them a jobs 3 to 4 times the minimum wage, and some of them will do much better, and some of them will do business. So we'll be investing in talent, recruiting the talent. This is in one hand, and through smart partnership with the donor and the government, okay, we'll make that an incentive, extra incentivize for us to make it affordable. So we have created, the program will create up to 1 million learners a year to participate. This is our model. Thank you.
Eric, and then I will also give Raj and Doris the chance. So maybe 2 points, like sustainable funding for TVET, and then how do you really create these partnerships with the private sector?
Yeah, I think it's a very valuable question. In Switzerland, there are about 60% of the whole costs related to VT are borne by the private sector, actually. And I wouldn't even say that these are costs, but it's an investment in the future, invest in the youth, but also investment in my own company. And there has been a study that has been conducted. So in Switzerland, it was shown that to train young people, apprentices, it is even financially beneficial for the company. So they get a profit out of it. So they pay a small salary to the youth, to the young people, but at the same time they are quite rapidly productive, integrated in the production process. They work on real services, on real clients, real products, and therefore actually the productive output is bigger than the costs related to offer these apprenticeships.
Yeah, so showing the private sector that actually they are the ultimate beneficiaries of skilling may help to bring them on board. I will also pass the floor to Doris and Raj on this question. Maybe also to reflect on, for Doris then, on the role of external funders. I think Ibrahim also mentioned that the model that they are proposing is not, if I understand it correctly, not necessarily funded up to 60% by the private sector as the Swiss model. So there are other financial backers behind it. It's blended finance. So maybe Doris, you can reflect on how do you see the role of philanthropy and of co-impact in this kind of blended finance for scaling TVET? And Raj, please address the question also on well, how do you actually do it from the government side? Your staff is embedded in state governments, so how can you, from the government side, actually approach private sector partners and bring them on board? Doris, you go first, and then I will give the last word to Raj.
Thank you, Maud. So, bringing in this perspective of the blended finance and what role would philanthropy play, I think that somewhat depends on the profile of the philanthropic funder as well. But for us at Co-Impact, I mean, certainly we never see ourselves as funding fully everything that needs to be done for the systems change. But we see our role as being that kind of first part that is able to take the risk, but we very much work with our program partners like Raj and others on, then how are you thinking about who pays, not only who does, but who pays for it in the end? And I think this is such an important question, and so much I want to talk to Eric about, and Ibrahim as well, on, getting business to really see themselves in this and wanting to pay for this. So I think I have as much a question for our audience member who said that the private sector doesn't really see themselves in it, because as much as to Eric it sounded like I said government should lead, and I do think they have a huge role to play, also private sector seeing how they can see the benefit, what drives their incentive would really, in that context that you're in as well, would really matter. Over to Raj.
Thank you, Doris. I think the thing which has worked, and I spoke about it briefly, is treating micro and small enterprises as training centers themselves. So I completely agree. Providing practical training is very, very expensive. I myself, I'm a son of a grocery store merchant, and I was an intern to my dad since I was 9 years old. And that is where we thought about this model, where the MSMEs are able to train the students which are needed. Now, what is there in it for MSMEs for that? We all know they are going digital, right? There's so many digital apps which are coming. And if I cannot think my dad going for a digital app, for managing his inventory. There is our interns who are helping the small businesses to get it. Secondly, even finding the employees. We all know, even though on one hand there is a lot of employment, but on the other hand, the employers are not finding good employees, and these internships have been made to as a source for the small businesses to get potential employees with them. And lastly, I would mention, and we have started working on that area as well. There's the whole work integrated academics, in the sense that after 12, degree is required, right? That's a social need. You cannot say that degree is not required, because that is how the society is built for hundreds of years. So we have worked on, in fact, there is a company called HCL Taqdeem, 10,000 engineers being trained on HCL site, with degree being awarded in conjunction with a very well-known university in India. So in a way, if you are working there, you are getting not only 4 years of work experience, but as soon as you finish your 4 years, you also get a degree from a very well-known university called Pilani, and you haven't borrowed a single rupee from anybody, and you are totally debt-free when you are coming out of that 4-year program after 12th grade time. So I think these are some of the solutions which we have to try it out and work at a scale and make it work at a scale to prove the potential that TVET can offer. Thank you.
If you allow me just 1 second. Data, evidence. Okay, if data and evidence is there, and the learners is getting jobs, and we sell this outcome for, like we have here in the conference, Education Outcome Fund, the Swiss Development Fund, they have support me to create that innovative finance. If it's evidence, data, outcome by jobs, I don't think the funding will be an issue. If we have the evidence and data, everyone will fund it.
Yeah, if you can show results.
And transparency and data and evidence.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody, for a thought-provoking and very rich discussion. And I hope, also with mindful what Doris said, that next time we can all meet together face to face and continue talking. Thank you also to the audience.
Thank you. Thank you very much.